The gallery was empty except for us. Mahima's fingers brushed mine as she reached for the same wineglass, and I felt 58 years of carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. Her dark eyes held mine for a moment too long, and I knew, with the terrible clarity that comes with age, that everything was about to change. She was my husband's business partner, my daughter's mentor, forbidden in every way that mattered. But when she leaned in and whispered, "I've been waiting for you to notice," I realized the most dangerous boundary wasn't the one between us. It was the one I'd built around my own heart. The Karnataka Art Foundation's annual gala had become predictable over the years, but tonight felt different. I stood before a massive abstract canvas, pretending to study the violent slashes of crimson and gold while my champagne went flat in my hand. At 62, I'd perfected the art of appearing engaged while mentally cataloging everything that needed attention at home: Edward's diabetes medication, the leak in the guest bathroom, the thank you note still unwritten from our anniversary party 3 months ago. Nalini Kapoor, still hiding behind other people's passion, I see. The voice came from behind me, low and accented with traces of her native Gujarat mixed with years spent in London. Mahima Deshmukh. Of course. I turned slowly, buying myself time to arrange my expression into something appropriately neutral. She looked infuriatingly vibrant in a deep plum sari that somehow managed to be both elegant and sensual. The pallu draped over one shoulder to reveal toned arms that spoke of early morning yoga sessions I'd heard about but never witnessed. At 57, Mahima carried herself with the confidence of a woman who'd never doubted her right to take up space in the world. "Mahima," I said, pleased that my voice remained steady. "I didn't know you were interested in contemporary art." "There's quite a bit you don't know about me." She stepped closer, close enough that I caught the scent of sandalwood and something darker, richer. Though I suspect that's intentional. My fingers tightened around the champagne flute. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" Her eyes, almost black in the gallery's dramatic lighting, searched my face with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. "We've known each other for 3 years, Nalini. 3 years of charity boards and business dinners and polite small talk. And in all that time, you've never once let me pass those impeccable manners of yours." I should have made an excuse. Should have laughed it off with the practiced deflection I'd honed over decades of being Edward Kapoor's wife, of being the woman everyone expected me to be. Instead, I heard myself say, "Perhaps there's nothing past them to find." "I don't believe that." She reached out, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought she might touch me, but her hand merely gestured toward the painting. "This piece, do you know what it's called?" I glanced at the small placard, "Woman Unbound." The artist painted it after leaving her marriage of 30 years. Mahima's voice had gone soft, intimate. She said she'd spent so long being what everyone needed her to be that she'd forgotten she was allowed to want things for herself. The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through carefully maintained surfaces. I turned to look at her fully, really look at her, and found her watching me with an expression I couldn't quite name. Hope? Recognition? Something that made my pulse quicken in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I see you, Nalini. I see the woman you're trying so hard not to be." She stepped closer, close enough that anyone watching would think we were simply two friends discussing art. And I'm tired of pretending I don't. I didn't sleep that night. Edward snored beside me, oblivious, while I stared at the ceiling and replayed every word, every glance, every charged moment. At 3 in the morning, I gave up and went downstairs to the kitchen, making tea I didn't want just to have something to do with my hands. My phone lit up on the counter. A message from an unknown number. "I can't stop thinking about the way you looked at me tonight. If I've misread this, tell me now, and I'll never mention it again. But if I haven't..." I stared at those words until they blurred. 40 years of marriage. 2 grown children, a life that looked perfect in photographs and felt like a museum exhibit. Beautiful, untouchable, slowly gathering dust. And here was Mahima, offering me what? Chaos? Destruction? Or just the possibility of feeling alive again? My fingers trembled as I typed, "You haven't misread anything. That's what terrifies me." Her response came immediately. "Don't be terrified. Be brave." We met 3 days later at a small cafe in Maleswaram, far enough from our usual haunts that we were unlikely to encounter anyone we knew. Mahima was already there when I arrived, seated in a corner booth with 2 cups of filter coffee she'd ordered for us both. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said as I slid into the seat across from her. I wasn't sure either. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, needing something to anchor me. "This is insane, Mahima. You know that, don't you?" "Is it?" She leaned back, studying me with that unnerving directness of hers. "Or is it insane that we're supposed to ignore what we feel just because it doesn't fit into the neat little boxes society has prepared for us? I'm married, you work with my husband, my daughter looks up to you. There are 1,000 reasons why this, whatever this is impossible. And yet you're here." I had no response to that, because she was right. I'd canceled my morning Bharatanatyam class, lied to Edward about meeting a friend for coffee, and driven across the city to sit in a cafe with a woman who made me feel things I'd convinced myself I was too old, too settled, too respectable to feel. "Tell me something," Mahima said quietly. "When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because it was expected, not because it was appropriate, but simply because it made you happy?" I opened my mouth to answer and found I couldn't. The silence stretched between us, heavy with all the years of compromise and duty and slow, quiet erasure of self. "I don't even know what makes me happy anymore," I finally admitted. "Then let's find out." She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of mine. "I'm not asking you to leave Edward or blow up your life. I'm just asking you to give yourself permission to want something, to want me. And if I do, if I admit that every time I see you I have to remind myself to breathe, that I dream about you in ways that make me wake up feeling guilty and alive all at once, what then?" Mahima's smile was slow, warm, devastating. "Then we stop pretending. We take this one day at a time and see where it leads." "It could lead to disaster." "It could," she agreed. "Or it could lead to the first honest thing either of us has felt in years." It started innocently enough, if anything about our situation could be called innocent. Coffee meetings became lunch dates. Text messages grew longer, more personal. Mahima would send me photographs of things that made her think of me. A particular shade of sunset, a line from a poem, the way light fell across temple stones. Edward noticed nothing. Why would he? In 40 years of marriage, I'd never given him reason to doubt me. I was Nalini Kapoor, pillar of the community, devoted wife and mother, woman who'd built her entire identity around being exactly what everyone needed her to be. But with Mahima, I was someone else, someone I'd never allowed myself to be. "Tell me about your first love," she said one afternoon. We were in her apartment, a beautifully appointed space in Indiranagar that somehow felt more like home than my own house ever had. She'd invited me to see a painting she'd recently acquired, but the painting sat forgotten against the wall as we settled onto her sofa with wine. "Edward was my first serious relationship," I said automatically. "That's not what I asked." Mahima's fingers played with the stem of her glass. "I asked about your first love." I took a long drink of wine, buying time. "There was a girl in college, Priya." "Tell me." The words came slowly at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. I told her about Priya's laugh, about stolen moments in the library, about the way my heart had raced every time we touched, about the shame and fear that had driven me to end things, to choose the safe path, to marry Edward because that was what good girls from good families did. Do you regret it? Mahima asked when I fell silent. I've spent 40 years trying not to think about it. I met her eyes. But yes, every day. She set down her wine glass and shifted closer. Nalini, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. My heart hammered against my ribs. All right. What do you want from this? From us? I don't know, I whispered. I just know that when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in decades. That when you look at me, you see someone I thought I'd buried so deep she could never resurface. I want... My voice broke. I want to know what it feels like to be chosen for who I am, not what I represent. Mahima reached out and cupped my face in her hand, her thumb tracing the line of my cheekbone with heartbreaking gentleness. You are extraordinary, Nalini Kapoor, beautiful and brilliant and so much braver than you give yourself credit for. I'm terrified, I admitted. I know. She leaned closer, her breath warm against my skin. But I'm going to kiss you now, and if you want me to stop, just say the word. I should have said it, should have pulled back, made excuses, fled to the safety of my carefully constructed life. Instead, I closed the distance between us. Her lips were soft, questioning at first, then more certain as I responded. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be kissed by someone who wanted me. Not the idea of me, not the role I played, but me. Messy, complicated, 58-year-old me with my stretch marks and gray roots and decades of suppressed longing. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Mahima rested her forehead against mine. Tell me you feel this too, she whispered. Tell me I'm not alone in this. You're not alone. I threaded my fingers through her silver-streaked hair. God help me, you're not alone. The affair, if that's what we were calling it, continued for 3 months. 3 months of stolen afternoons and careful lies, of learning the geography of Mahima's body and rediscovering my own capacity for passion. 3 months of feeling more alive than I had in years, and more guilty with each passing day. Edward suspected nothing. My daughter Priya, named for that first love I'd never forgotten, was too busy with her own life to notice her mother's distraction. To the outside world, nothing had changed. But inside, I was fracturing. You can't keep doing this to yourself, Mahima said. We were lying in her bed, afternoon light painting patterns across her brown skin. The guilt is eating you alive. What would you have me do? I sat up, pulling the sheet around myself. Blow up my marriage? Destroy my family? I'm 62 years old, Mahima. I don't get to have a grand romantic awakening at my age. Why not? She sat up beside me, her eyes fierce. Who made that rule? Who decided that women of a certain age have to accept whatever life they've been given and be grateful for it? It's not that simple. It never is. She caught my hand, lacing our fingers together. But I need to know, is this real for you? Or am I just some midlife crisis you're working through? The question landed like a slap. How can you even ask me that? Because I'm falling in love with you, Nalini. And I need to know if you're capable of loving me back, or if you're always going to be half here, half somewhere else, too afraid to choose. I looked at our joined hands, hers long-fingered and strong, mine smaller, softer, wearing the wedding ring I hadn't yet found the courage to remove. I've spent my entire life being afraid, I said quietly. Afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being judged, afraid of wanting the wrong things. And now I'm afraid that even if I found the courage to choose you, it would be too late. That I've wasted too many years to deserve a second chance. Look at me. Mahima waited until I met her eyes. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be loved by someone who sees all of you and wants you anyway. And yes, choosing that might hurt people. It might be messy and complicated and harder than anything you've ever done. But the alternative is spending the rest of your life wondering what if. I thought about Edward, about our comfortable routine and separate bedrooms, and the way we'd stopped really seeing each other years ago. I thought about my children, grown and independent, building their own lives. I thought about the woman I saw in the mirror each morning, tired, faded, going through the motions. And then I thought about the woman I became in Mahima's arms, passionate, alive, whole. I can't promise this will be easy, I said. I can't promise I won't panic or that my family won't hate me or that I'll know how to do this. But I'm choosing you, Mahima. I'm choosing us. She pulled me into her arms, and I felt her tears against my neck. That's all I needed to hear. The road ahead would be difficult. I had no illusions about that. There would be difficult conversations and hurt feelings and judgments from people I'd known my entire life. But as I held Mahima and felt her heartbeat against mine, I realized something important. I was done apologizing for wanting to be happy, done shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. At 62, I was finally ready to cross the line I'd been afraid to approach my entire life. And on the other side, Mahima was waiting. 2 years later, I stand in my own apartment, smaller than the house I shared with Edward, but infinitely more mine, and watch Mahima cook dinner in our kitchen. The divorce was hard. The conversations with my children were harder. But they came around eventually. They saw something in me they'd never seen before: joy. This story isn't a fairy tale. There's no neat resolution, no promise that everything worked out perfectly. But it's real. It's mine. And for the first time in my life, that's enough. Are you ready to claim your own story? To choose passion over propriety, authenticity over appearance? Your second act is waiting. All you have to do is be brave enough to cross the line. The end, or perhaps the beginning.